Okay, today in this video we're going to talk about fractions. Remember some basic concepts, the generalities, and try to have a quick review of the basic operations whenever we're dealing with fractions. So let's start talking about generalities about fractions. So remember, let's take an example. Let's say 7 over 5 could be here. This is a fraction. Remember, this number right here, the one on top, is what you call the numerator. And the one on bottom, below the line, is what you call the denominator. Okay? That is the first thing that I want you to remember. The numerator and the denominator. Another concept, general concept that I want you to be clear on, and that is kind of a good idea for you to remember when we're dealing with fractions. Based upon this thing, knowing what is the numerator and what is the denominator, so what I want to know is that if the numerator is greater than the denominator, so the result of the fraction, remember that the fraction is kind of a division, so the result of that division is going to be a number that will be greater than 1, okay? That will be definitely greater than 1. On the other hand, if the numerator is a number that is less than the denominator, the result that you're gonna have for the fraction, okay, like if you transform the fraction into a decimal, the result will be a number that is again less than 1, okay? So, for example, let's try to work with me here. If I take 13 over 5, so in this case, 13, that is the numerator, is greater than 5, that is the denominator. So what we can guarantee, even if we don't, let's say that we don't have a calculator, we don't want to spend that much time finding, like doing the whole division, but for sure we can guarantee that the result of this division is going to be greater than 1, okay? Why? Because the numerator, that is the number of top, is greater than the number below, that is 5, okay? The denominator. Now, if I have another fraction where, let's say that we invert this number, so let's say 5 over 13. In this case, now we have the numerator being less than the denominator. The number of top is smaller than the one in the bottom. When that happens, again, we might not be able to know the answer right now. We don't have a calculator, or we don't take some time performing the whole division, but 100% certain, we can guarantee that this result will be a number that will be less than 1, okay? That is a characteristic of fractions, many times useful, and keeping this concept or this idea in mind will be one of those things that might help us to save time doing calculations in the future, okay? So do remember this. Okay, now let's talk about the basic operations with fractions. Which are the basic operations with fractions? Again, we're going to talk about addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. This will be a quick review on these guys. So let's start with addition. Well, let's say addition, subtraction, okay? Because at the end of the day, the step-by-step process is exactly the same. I will tell you just what is going to be the difference, okay? Addition and subtraction. So let's say that we have two numbers, two fractions. I like the ones that we had right there. So let's say that is 7/5, and let's talk about another fraction, I don't know, 1/2, let's say. And we need to add them or subtract them, okay? Let's go first with addition. So if we want to add these two numbers, remember, step by step, the process is we need to find the common denominator. So what is that multiple between 5 and 2 that are common, that is common to both, okay? That is what you call the least common multiple, okay? So a number that is divisible by 5 and that same number is also divisible by 2. In this case, the smallest one that I can think of is 10, probably. So I write down here the 10. Now, what do? we cross multiply, right? Like this 10, you can obtain the 10 by multiplying 5 times 2, I get 10. Now you multiply this diagonal first, okay? So the next step will be for you to do 7 times 2, because it's adding, so here will be addition. And we multiply the other diagonal, that in this case will be 5 times 1, okay? So I multiply the two denominators, I get this number, and then I cross multiply. Again, the first multiplication that I need to perform is from top to bottom, you know, so from the 7 to the 2. That always should be the first one, okay? In addition, will not make that much of a difference, but in subtraction, that's going to be very important. And nothing, we perform this operation. 7 times 2 is 14, 5 times 1 is 5 over 10. This is equal to 19 over 10, and this will be your answer. Because 19 is a prime number, we cannot simplify this result. But do remember that whenever we reach an answer like this, there is a fraction, and we see that we can simplify it, we always should give our answer by simplifying the fraction to the minimum expression. You know, simplify it as much as we can. So this will be the case for addition. Let's come up with another example, and we perform the subtraction, okay? Let's say that we have that number that we had before, that it was 13 over 5, okay? Now we want to subtract that number by 3 over 4, 3/4, right? Same process, compañeros. This thing will be exactly the same process step by step, meaning we will multiply the denominators, right? I multiply 5 and 4, which is 20. Now I cross multiply, and again I start from top to bottom, so the first multiplication that I perform is 13 times 4. So it will be 13 times 4, as this is a subtraction, so it's minus, and the multiplication of the other diagonal, that will be 5 times 3. All right, multiply the denominators and let's cross multiplication. Let's perform this operation. 13 times 4 is normally like 52, I think. Minus 15, 5 times 3 is 15 over 20. We perform the subtraction, so 52 minus 15, that is going to be 37 over 20. We see we can simplify this guy, 37, 20. Well, actually, I think that 37 is also a prime number, so we will not be able to simplify it, meaning that this will be the result of performing that subtraction, okay? So check it out, the exact same process for addition and subtraction. Be clear on two things. Well, actually, if this is an addition, you add. If it is subtraction, you subtract. And the other important aspect is that the first, you multiply the denominators, and then the first diagonal that you need to multiply is this one, the one that goes from top to bottom, okay? From 13 to 4, from 7 to 2. That is always the first diagonal that you need to multiply. Otherwise, the result might vary, and that's not something that we want to do, okay? Let's go now and discuss how will you perform multiplication and division whenever you're doing it with fractions, okay? So let's talk about multiplication. That probably is the simplest of them all, the one that everybody remembers, or at least everybody likes. So multiplication of fractions. Again, let's take these two numbers. 7/5, I think that it was one, and the other one I think was 3/4. And we want to multiply them. So you will like this guy because this is like a straight multiplication, meaning you multiply numerators and then you multiply the denominators, and that's it. So let's write down here, you multiply the numerators, and then multiply denominators, okay? Denominators, and that's it. Then we'll see if we can simplify anything. So I multiply numerators, meaning this thing will be 7 times 3. I multiply the two numerators, and the denominator will be equal to 5 times 4. I multiply the two denominators. 7 times 3 is 21, 5 times 4 is 20, and again we cannot simplify it. So this will be the result. That's it. There's nothing more into multiplication of fractions, okay? The last basic operation will be division. So let's remember how do you divide fractions. Step by step. The asterisk, the important aspect here, okay? I want you to swap the second fraction and then multiply, okay? Swap the second fraction and then multiply. So let's check the example and let's see how it goes. Let's use the same two numbers. 7/5 divided, now multiply by divided, 3/4. So step number 1, swap the second fraction. So the second fraction is 3/4. So when I say swapped, that means that, well, the first one, nothing happens, is still 7/5. The second one, I swapped it, like I said, I flip it. So it becomes 4/3, 4/3. That is the first thing. That is swapping the fraction, okay? Flipping the fraction. It's not 3/4 anymore, now it's 4/3. And then multiply. So after swapping, after flipping the second fraction, now I perform the multiplication. That you already know how to perform the multiplication. 7 times 4, right, is straight, so numerators, and then I multiply denominators. This will be 5 times 3. We solve it. 7 times 4 is 28. 5 times 3 is 15. And this will be your answer. That's the whole thing, okay? Don't overcomplicate it. The division seems tricky to many people, but then again, remember, you just take the second fraction, you flip it, and after having flipped or having swapped the second fraction, you perform a multiplication that is easy because it's straight. You know, denominator with denominator, numerator with numerator. That's it. All right. As always, guys, I hope that this is clear. May you have any sort of questions or anything that you need to clarify and you want me to back you up on that, please email us and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. See you on the next video.